Welcome to The Deciding Point, our Cracked Racquets weekly roundup of the biggest storylines happening from throughout the tennis world. On this week's show, we had so much action unfold over the past 2 weeks in Paris, we decided to make a second episode this week. So on this edition, we're going to be talking about the women's singles draw at the 2021 French Open. Again, I'm going to name a combination of 5 winners and losers from the event. Of course, we're going to touch on Krejcikova, we're going to talk Pavlyuchenkova, the pathway for Serena Williams to title number 24, and so much more. With that in mind, Westoff, roll the credits. Let's start today's show. As you Cracked Racquets fans will know, something we love to do on our shows is discuss the many generations of players currently competing on the various tours, talk about how those generations stack up against one another and how that competition shapes the results we see week in, week out on tour. You look right now in the women's game, there has been an emergence of a couple of generations that are certain to shape the next, I would say, decade of WTA Tour results. Now, the obvious generation, the next-gen women's talent. You have a player like Naomi Osaka, who's already won 4 Grand Slam titles, who's become the highest-grossing women's athlete in professional sports history, who's become the number 1 player in the world. We know her upside. We know she's not going anywhere. You also have a player like Ashley Barty, Grand Slam champion, still, I believe, turns 25 years old at some point this year, may have happened already. You've got someone like Bianca Andreescu, even younger than that, Grand Slam champion. Sonia Kenin, Grand Slam champion. Iga Swiatek, Grand Slam champion. You've got talents like Arina Sabalenka as well. Coco Gauff certainly on the rise. Marta Kostyuk playing outstanding talent. We know how many looming superstars there are right now in the queue in the women's tennis game. But there's also that, you would refer to them as the middle class by age, but there's also that ascending primes right now, or players currently in the midst of their primes, perhaps hitting their primes this season. The 1995s, the players that are near and dear to my heart as a fellow 95er, who have clearly hit the primes of their careers, and whose primes, I think, are a little bit higher than we anticipated as tennis fans. Certainly, it was easy to get lost in the superstardom of the young talents, as well as, the older generation of players, not old, just older comparatively, in a Serena Williams, in a Simona Halep, a Petra Kvitova, even someone like an Angelique Kerber, or, a Vika Azarenka, I suppose a little bit older than them, Madison Keys, Garbine Muguruza, of course you've got Sloane Stephens, Karolina Pliskova in the mix there, Svitolina, you can name all of these players. There's a long list of talented players just throughout the WTA Tour right now, but you look at the 1995s in particular, who again turned 26 this year. You would think physically this is when they hit their primes, and then this is the point where they've got a couple years of tour experience. So not only are they physically in their primes, but mentally they understand the grind of the week in, week out results, and they understand how to prepare their bodies to peak for the year's biggest events. A lot of talent up and down this 1995 class. Krejcikova, the obvious one, who we talked about on a different point, to just go through the highlights once again for her, and we have the graphics, so Westoff, put that up on the screen now. We'll start with Krejcikova, who you look on this list, 44-16 now. This doesn't include her 3 wins in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. She's also, again, 8 quarterfinals. It's now 4 semifinals, 3 finals, 2 titles in her now 17 total events. She's now 4-6 versus top 20 players, 2-1 versus top 10, 6th in hold percentage, 26th in break percentage. That new career live ranking up to number 15. She's obviously a player ascending in her prime, but you look beyond that list. Players we've talked about a lot on our mini break of late. We'll go next to Maria Sakkari, who's now, you look at these results. Again, this was done before the semifinal round, but 32-14 overall at that point. That number, obviously 1 win higher, also 1 loss higher. She reached her first, so I did do this before, quarterfinal and semifinal, 5 WTA level semifinals, 7 quarterfinals in 15 total total events, 9-8 versus top 20 players, 5-4 versus top 10. She's one of just 7 players to be in the top 21 in both hold and break percentage. New career high for her inside the top 20 as well. You've got a player like Annette Kontaveit. I'm not going to read them all here. You can see them on the screen, but she's solidified herself as a top 30, and in my opinion, higher than that. Top 20, in my opinion, talent. She only loses to players in the top 20. You look closely at her record, it reflects that fact. Elisa Mertens, who was your WTA wins leader in 2020, another player who has had a lot of firsts in her career over the past 12 months and is always in that third, fourth quarterfinal round mix. Now, of course, another one, Jennifer Brady, the last player you throw for sure out there on that list, who made a Grand Slam semifinal and US Open, followed that up with the final in Australia as well. And then there are other names you throw out there, the 95 to 97s, Barty, Osaka, Ostapenko, Keys, Bencic, Kudermetova, Kasatkina, Putintseva, Sorribes Tormo, Mukic, Vekic, Podoroska, Teichmann. Again, it gets those players at the bottom, just players I think are going to be in the top 50 for a long time, but that speaks to the fact that this next-gen group on the women's side, the 95s to 97s, they're loaded. And even before you think about a Kenin, a Swiatek, an Andreescu, a Goff, you have to look at these players who are in their primes right now and who are ready to win. Case in point, Krejcikova, who was the right player in the right time this week. Sakkari put herself in that position as well. It's not going to surprise me if I see a Mertens or a Kontaveit do the same. Now, it would surprise me if it was a Sorribes Tormo, but again, these players have hit their prime. They've been on tour long enough to know what's what. These players are really, really good. And before we get too excited about the next gen of women's talent, let's look at these players in their prime right now. Because again, why are these events so open? Has anyone in this group really solidified themselves as the player to beat? Maybe you say Osaka on hard courts. Outside of that, it does feel like there's always at least 5 players in the mix. That means it's really, really exciting tennis. Certainly, we saw that unfold at the 2021 French Open, an unequivocal step forward for the next-gen WTA.